All right, so appreciate everyone joining us today for Let's Chat. My name's Eddie, and I have my friend Yesenia with us today, and we're going to be talking about financing your deals subject to. So before we get started here, I just wanted to let you guys know that we're going to go over some examples of some deals that we've done and talk about structuring some of your real estate deals. But we're not attorneys or CPAs, so just make sure to talk to your qualified professionals before you do any of your deals. So Yesenia, why don't you just give us a quick background of your real estate experience and let everyone know just a little bit about you.
Yeah, I've been in real estate for about 18 years now. So I started when I was, well, if I tell you when I started, then you'll know my age. So I won't tell you when I started, but I was in my 20s. Actually, I was 23, turning 24. So I started with just small condo rehabbing, and without a coach, without a mentor, without knowing anything at all. And here I am today, from renovating small condos to renovating homes, to designing homes, building new construction, designing and development, and doing multifamily syndications as well. So it's been fun, and also coaching probably around about 3,600 business owners nationwide on doing the same thing. So that's been very rewarding as well.
Yeah, that's a lot of good experience. That's why I wanted you to come on here and talk to us. So let's just get into our topics. So subject to, so for people that may not be familiar with that, just give us a brief description of what that is.
So we like to say subject to, right, in the investor lingo. It's really subject to the existing mortgage, right? And really what we utilize that, we leverage it to be able to help very distressed homeowners to get out of their situation. And it's done pretty good wonders in many different, very distressed homeowners, mainly. You see it more and more now. Well, I'm seeing it more and more now in the elderly community, which that's why I like it so much, because we're actually able to really help them, right? Instead of someone else just coming and taking their home and they're left out, with nowhere to go, or with a debt that, again, they're in very distressed situations. So we'll talk about that a little bit more.
Yeah. So like if it's a seller that's behind in payments, or they're in a situation where they're having difficulty selling their house for whatever reason, which, in this market right now, I mean, a lot of people are able to have enough equity, they can just sell their house, easily, many times, even if they are behind in payments. But there are still situations where, obviously subject to would make sense, and a seller can, they can benefit from just their credit being repaired or helped. If you, take over the payments, and then, once you make those payments for a certain amount of time, that will help rebuild the seller's credit. So that's, one benefit to the seller. Plus you can usually close on them pretty quick. I mean, a subject to is, really one of the quickest transactions that you can do besides cash. You can literally go to your title company and, sign the documents and close, because if you're just taking over payments, you're sometimes not even bringing money to the table. So, there's quite a few benefits to the seller, but give us some examples. Like I think there was a deal that you recently had purchased was subject to.
Yes, just recently helped an elderly couple. Their home was actually very distressed, right? Not just their home, but their financial pockets as well. They were behind on payments. They had a Chapter 31, right? So we were able to get the property subject to the existing mortgage. What we did is bring them up to date. We're able to bring up to date with PML money, and also pay off the Chapter 13, right? So it actually cleared the home, got a clean title, right? All of this was done through a real title company, right? So we got a real clean title. The Chapter 13 was cleared, And now what we're working on as the months go on, we're actually being truly able to help them with their credit, right? So every month that we pay on that mortgage still in their name, it helps their credit, right? So one of the benefits, that's another benefit for them, but also for us as a real estate investor, one of the big benefits is that we don't really need to come out with a gigantic sum for purchase of the actual property, right? So let's say the house is let's say that a house owes 240, right? And they're behind on payments. Let's say $25,000. Okay, so with PML funds, we can actually pay off that Chapter 13 of 25K, right? 25K over 240 plus 25K, that's a big chunk, right? So we come out with the $25,000, wait for the Chapter 13 to clear off. While that's clearing off, it clears off right before closing. That's how we get the clear title, okay? And then we start making those mortgage payments. And the owners start seeing, it's not drastic change. It takes 6 months to a year and a half for them to actually see a huge change in their credit. But the good thing is that they have a clean slate, right? They are able to, if they want, in a year and a half or 2 years, buy another small home if they want. Okay, so it's a win-win. It's a win for us because we're able to, again, not come up with a large, gigantic sum, yet acquire property, we fix it, we either sell it, and so there's different strategies. You can keep it as a rental, Airbnb, whatever, depending on the location, or sell, list it with a real estate agent. So during the time of renovation, all those months, whatever it may be, whether it's 3 months or 4 months, it still helps the individual with their credit, right? So this one we have planned to hold it a little bit longer. So it makes even more sense for us to keep paying the mortgage payments. By the time we're done, they're going to walk out with a really, really good credit score where even or if I send it over to one of my realtor friends like Eddie, they can list it or they can help them find another property.
So it sounds like you're able to help them out with several things there. I mean, you're able to get them out of the bankruptcy, plus catch up their back payments, plus help eventually rebuild their credit. So it sounds like that was a pretty good deal for them. But my question on that deal is, like, when you looked at it yourself as an investor, what made you think, hey, I'm going to do this subject to versus maybe just an all cash offer?
The reason why I personally decided to go subject to is, one, the renovation was a lot. Over 100K in renovations. The walls had to rebuild 2 of the walls of the home, so foundational, right? That takes time, okay? And just the home really was in bad shape. So the renovation, it wasn't going to be anything that we can do in 2 months. It is going to take 6, 7, 8 months just for the process of it. The process that we were going to take to fix the home, the foundation. Also, you mentioned something about back payments.
Yeah.
What else did you say after that?
Back payments, bankruptcy, and their credit.
It'll come back to me.
Yeah, but I mean, but I was also just saying, just from your perspective as the investor, what was the reason you went subject to? And so it sounds like because there was so much you had to put into that deal, and obviously it makes sense. If you can get part of it financed with that, existing mortgage, then you don't have to put as much into the deal, and that's one of the huge advantages to the investor is less money into the deal.
It's less money in a deal, lump sum, and they have a really good mortgage right now.
Yeah.
The interest is at 3.2 something. Right now, like it's twice that, almost 3 times that right now, right? So we actually negotiated, made the deal at the right time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially if we want to keep it and hold it as a rental, right? So, and also the numbers in the neighborhood themselves, the comps, the comparables in that neighborhood, they were anywhere from 500K to 700 to $1 million. So it's a really good neighborhood, a really good location, where affluent buyers will come and buy that property. So it just makes sense to keep it with, or acquire it with a subject to, and then use PML to do the rest.
So then another way you finance it was your private money. So if anyone doesn't know what PML means, it's private money lenders. That's how you funded the rehab, basically. In a situation like that, I mean, if you have a subject to and you can take over the payments, well, that will pay for the property. But then, you sometimes you have your closing costs. You may have some realtor fees if a realtor's involved, or especially the big thing is your rehab costs.
Yeah.
So if you have that rehab cost, then you're going to have to either come out of pocket for that or use a private lender and fund the deal. And so it sounds like you got pretty much most of the whole thing funded between the subject to on buying the property and your private lender on the rehab. See, there you go. Not bad.
So it's a win-win-win. Win for the seller, right? Win for the buyer, and win for investors, right? Because being able to pay out, buying right, being able to pay out our investors their money plus interest, it's a win-win, which is what is the most type of transactions that I look for, and I think we're in that market, right?
Yeah, and I think it's also important to have those kinds of strategies right now, especially when deals are for a lot of people hard to come by. I mean, there's still low inventory, even though it's ticked up a little bit in Chattanooga over the past few months. There's still, inventory is still like 2 to 3 times less than what it should be right now for a more balanced market. So you've got another tool like that where you can go in and take over a property subject to, but you got another way to buy a property when deals are harder to come by. And just in case, just for those of you that are watching, in case you don't understand exactly the process, the subject to when we're talking about taking over payments, what happens is the mortgage stays in the original owner's name, and then the investor gets the deed, or they take title to the property either in their company or a trust. So that's how you're able to fund. The investor is able to buy the deal. Is they're basically, I like to look at it as you're basically buying a property using a mortgage that somebody else qualified for. So there's advantages to both sides. So that's what that means.
Yes, and the mortgage in place, right? We did everything. Everything's done through the title company. It's not something that I write on a napkin and say, "Hey, here you go." And we follow every regulation that we need to by the state of Tennessee, right? And before I came along, before the property came to me, there were about 3 to 4 different agents that were trying to sell the home. Property like this is not going to go to a regular buyer, a retail buyer. So that's where we come in, where we can actually save the day, right?
Yeah. So you're saying that, by the way, the napkin thing, you actually can do that in Tennessee.
Oh yeah.
I wouldn't recommend it because if you're terms of your contract are on a napkin, it's obviously not going to be the best contract, but you can actually do that. So just in case anyone's wondering, you can have a napkin contract. Just not the best contract.
Yeah, the specific property that I'm talking about right now, the lady, the elderly lady, they're both elderly couple, but very ill, wheelchair, just very sad situation. And we were even able to help them find a rental property that their retirement funds would be able to pay, and they weren't gonna overly pay. So they're actually in a good home, clean, safe environment for them, handicap ready for them as well. So that's another solution, or another, I guess, service that we were able to provide the couple, and we still talk. I mean, she just texted me earlier today. She calls me her angel. So the key in this market, I think, is we need to, as investors, we need to really, what's our serving arms? What's our helping hands, right? How do we step into our community to be able to be a solution for the hardships that we're going to be seeing? Yes, there's opportunity for us, right? And also, there's the other side of the fence where we need to have empathy and be the leaders of our community, where we're actually giving distressed owners solutions to help them live the rest of their life. You never know. I mean, I think they could probably be my parents. I don't know. But I personally pride in that, especially because I remember when I first came to the U.S., my parents actually went through subject that we were just kind of talking about. My parents actually went through bankruptcy. And I remember I was young, but I remember I was like, you know what? This is never going to happen to me, So I think the time is now where we can actually just be creative with what we're doing instead of thinking only one box, right? There's not every real estate deal is in the same box, right? There's many different boxes, right? And if you guys want to know more about these strategies and all that, we can collaborate together. We can help each other. We can, I know you have a lot of knowledge in seller financing, subject to also solutions for probates, solutions for stopping foreclosures. Stopping foreclosures will actually help someone that owns these properties rather than allowing them to see you later, going to foreclosure, right? Educating the people, I think is one of the keys that is a benefit for us and our businesses to look good in our community, right? To be a solution provider. So that's why I love subject to.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I mean, and I agree, and I think it's really important now, especially that you're in more talk of things that that there's just economic uncertainty, there's this recession that we're going in, or apparently that we're already in, and even I've been talking to people that have like brokers and people that we work with, and they're talking about how there's more pending foreclosures right now that hasn't hit yet, and it's kind of been delayed the past couple of years, but I think there's a lot of things that are coming up where people are going to need solutions. So I think that just us as investors and real estate agents, those of us that do both, the more that we can provide people those solutions, I mean, the better off that everybody will be. And it really will help correct. I mean, I know when I first got into real estate, something that I remember from 12 years ago was this one seminar, and this investor was talking about how when things get messy, when the economy gets messy, when real estate gets messy, that the investors that are experienced and that know how to provide solutions, they step in and correct the market. They fix all the stuff that was messed up. And that's that's the way I like to look at it. Is yeah, I want to make money, but at the same time, I've got to make sure that what I'm doing is going to be something that is a win-win for everyone involved. So that's what I got out of what you're saying.
Yeah, I like to. No offense, but I think just buying a regular house, retail, is boring. Like, I need to put my brain to work. What can we fix here, right? Or what are we really fixing? Retail is retail, right? I think just talking more and more about creative financing and really seeing how we can actually just be a force of win-win solution providers out here.
Do you see this as a better option versus a cash offer?
Depends on the homeowner.
For people with equity in a home.
Yeah. Well,
to me that was a perfect example of a cash offer would have been a lot less healthy for them than what you did.
Correct. Right. So it depends on the situation. So I looked in any situation. I look at all my exit strategies.
Mm-hmm.
So this is just one of them, right? And how can, if I know that someone is in such need of getting out of a distress situation, and if I know how to do something that can help them, why would I just, I'll just give you full on cash, right? When I know that as soon as I give them that cash, that mortgage is paid, their credit is still messed up.
Exactly.
They are still going to need a place to live, rent. I don't rent to people that have bad credit. Do you guys?
No.
Right. So that's it. It's looking at the entire picture and explaining to them, right? Explaining to them, hey, so this is your need. Understanding the need that they actually had was number one. And this didn't happen in just one conversation. Right. And then seeing this is the solution that's really going to help you a year and a half, 2 years from now, when you're actually really going to need it, right? So.
Yeah, and another thing too. You don't necessarily even have to be in foreclosure to do this strategy. If the seller, if it makes sense for them, they could be current in their payments and not even really be in financial distress. You can use this strategy on any deal. Now, many times it typically is a seller in distress, but you can still use it with anyone that would see it as a benefit.
Or deferred maintenance.
And deferred maintenance, or even even things like somebody, maybe they have some equity, they could sell it with a realtor. You could give them a cash offer. Then they have like a they made a decent profit on it, so they have capital gains tax in some situations. Well, if you take that property over subject to for what they owe, then owner finance their equity to them in payments. Well, they don't have as much of a tax hit. If you pay it over 5, 6, 7, 10 years or whatever, that equity, if you pay it in payments over time, they won't have the tax hit they would if you just gave them a check for all of it immediately. So you've got that event. That could be someone that's not even in foreclosure or distress at all. That would be an advantage to them. So it does depend on the deal, but you still want to look at it based on really what's going to be the best solution for that seller, and also what's a good deal for you. It's a win-win both.
It could be something also like somebody I was in the military, so orders, gotta go, oh my gosh, what I do in my house.
Yeah.
I don't want to rent it, but what do I do? All my boxes are packed, I gotta go, right? That's a perfect situation too, right? You could, if there's equity, or if it's paid off, or if there's a mortgage subject to full equity only, seller financing, right? And off they go, right? And it's a win-win for all, right? So it doesn't have to be only distress, but trust me, if you're in the military, you gotta go. I've been in that situation. Like, I gotta go. What am I gonna do with this stuff? That's kind of a different type of distress.
Yeah. So I don't get too technical, but let's just talk just a little bit about like just the, the paperwork and documents. Like, how do you typically paper up your deal? Because there's different ways investors do it. So I just kind of want to hear your process.
I have a purchase and sale agreement. I have information release document.
Yeah.
I have in that information release document. I mean, we get everything, all the information that we need to be able to pay the mortgage. Their like their personal information, right? We get all of that, and as we go through this process, we're explaining to them why we need this, right? So that we can be able to continue smoothly, effortlessly, efficiently what we do on our end, right? So yeah, purchase and sale agreement, um, information release form. I get insurance myself on it. Let's see, title company does all the paperwork.
Do you have
I
a
don't do
particular
it.
title company that you're comfortable with the subject to? Because that's another big
Yeah.
area.
That you have to shop around. Not every title company does them. Not every title company is one and the same. So definitely a more real estate investor friendly type of title company. There's a few of them around here that do a really good job. What else?
So do you get a power of attorney? I know that some investors will get
Power
a power
of attorney.
So if you have to
Yes.
sign anything like insurance check,
Yeah.
or even if the bank wants to make sure that or if you need to sign something for really anybody, the power of attorney will allow you to do that. And the authorization to release, just for those of you that don't know, that's just the homeowner giving you the ability to contact their bank on their behalf and get information. So typically, like with subject to, first thing you'll do usually is contact the bank and get their payoff, because you want to know what their
Yes.
payoff is going to be before you go and close on it, because you want to know exactly what it's got on there. So you want to have that authorization to do that. Then you may have to contact the bank even later on after you've already bought it. So authorization, the power of attorney. Just as investors, it's good to have a contract that has subject to verbiage in there, like saying exactly what would happen in different scenarios. You have the due on sell clause, which potentially could be an issue. Most of the time it isn't, but you just want to have certain disclosures in your contract to where you've let them know and just what could potentially happen in this transaction, and make sure they're informed. And I think that's really the most important thing when you do these deals as an investor, is just be transparent and let people know. Tell them what could potentially happen. Tell them how the process is going to work. Make sure you disclosed everything. In that way, things later on, it's much less likely that there would be any issues.
Yeah, the key word there is educate them. I'm kind of anal at repeating myself, so
What? No, I'm kidding.
I'm very I repeat, I go through every document at least. Don't judge me. Sometimes 3 or 4 times, just because, especially if they're elderly, right? Yeah, you understand what this means, and I actually get them to, okay, tell me what we discussed today before we leave, right? So just that I know that we're in sync, so the story doesn't change at any other given time.
So there's been time periods when subject to, I know a couple of investors that probably got up to 200 subject twos.
Wow.
Wow.
And when everything crashed, it was a real issue.
Oh wow.
So do you have a parameter of how many subject twos that you're willing to have in your portfolio?
I personally don't, but I haven't been doing them that long, that long of a time. I'm actually, so how I run my business, I don't go for the highest number of deals a year.
Right.
I'm not I did 400 recaps a year, 100 or 60. I don't do that. I look for the quality of the property, the ROI for me. I like to, this is probably going in a different avenue, but I only do deals that give me a certain truly amount of return, especially a flip, you know. And with my track record, thank you goodness God, I've had, you know, I call them triples and home runs, right? So the triples are like 5 figures, home runners have always been 6 figures and up, right? That's not normal, but then again, I started in Hawaii, different numbers, different market, nice chunk of returns, right? I'm in a new market here, it's very different, but I've been doing really good. You know, I've had some nice handful of home runners, you know, and I'm okay with that. I can do 3 to 5 of those a year and I'm good. I don't need a
400.
stack
Right.
of, you know, nice, but that is a great question. I would say I don't think our market's going to get to that point. I really don't think so. I think we are going to see opportunities where we can help people, where we can acquire properties, multifamily, in the multifamily space. Mortgages are due. People are going to be like, what do I do now? You know, as a collective, you know, there's going to be opportunity there as well, right? So I think the opportunities that for those that are looking for, I think in the multifamily space as well, instead of going and going into a multifamily property where we're going to rehab, add value add or whatever, it's going to be more stable, more cash flowing properties, right? Where if you can get a loan and get in there and acquire it, where someone already did the majority of the job and you're at anywhere from 90 to 96% or above of occupancy, you know, you're doing good.
Yeah, Grace,
That's the kind of market that I think, again, it's just all speculation.
I'm thinking, Grace, you're talking about that investor that had the 200 properties. If that was the last market crash, it's probably someone that more than likely had a bunch of adjustable rate mortgages and they all adjusted and they couldn't make the payment, you know. And that just really goes back to do your due diligence on the deal, get the terms on the information from the bank, go back to the authorization form, you know, and just don't take on more than what you can. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. Because really, you know, and it's really, I think it's a good point because it's still it talks about just how we have an ethical responsibility as as investors to follow through with that, because you do have a loan that stays in someone else's name until you refinance or sell the property. So that's why you really got to make sure that you are on point with what you're doing on these deals. So that's the way that I look at it.
Anybody else have questions?
Did you want to go first? That's how you tried earlier.
Due on sales clause, the title company. So that is the issue I saw because it came up as a problem with another national person that I knew of from the time before. How does the title company work around that, or do you deal with that?
Well, they don't. The title company doesn't do anything to do on sale. That's just a clause
I know there's clause
in a mortgage or deed of trust that when the property is sold, that if the bank goes and, you know, and most of the time they don't look at it because they will, if you're making the payments, they're concerned that the payments are being made more so than if it's transferred, if the title is transferred. But in the case that they happen to call it, I mean, that's just the clause in a mortgage or deed of trust that allows the bank to collect all the money if they see the title is transferred. But most of the time, it's not an issue, and it's not something that the title company is going to deal with because it's just a mortgage clause that could be triggered at some point.
So
If
So
the
was that
bank
answer the
actually
question?
calls it, you got to be ready to.
Yeah. So there
So-
you go.
so way around it.
Yeah. So y'all do what we're trying to get at.
Yeah, I guess
That there's no
question.
other, because I've heard different ways to kind of get away around it. Either put in a land trust, or do some type
I
of
thought it was like a lease option.
lease option
That's
or
what-
like a term
Yes.
of fact or something like
I don't know
that.
that one, but I know
Yeah.
there's a few people that have had it called and have avoided it somehow, but I don't know the strategy on that. Even though
Yeah.
it rarely happens. I've
Yeah.
heard investors running into
Yeah.
it.
I don't.
thinking around it.
I've never done anything about the lease. What did you call it?
A lease option.
A lease
I'm not sure how you even
option?
structure that though.
I don't know. Someone tried to explain it to me and it went over my
Yeah.
head.
So we won't worry about that.
But
We
they
don't
did
know
but they
the
did mention
details.
that.
But the
But yes, if you do put the property on a trust, on a land trust, it's protected, right? It's protected from the moment that trust is on that property, right? So, because at that point, your entity, which is a trust, is the one that holds basically the shareholder, right? Now, the title company, if the seller agrees to all that, you can do all of that paperwork already with them signing on the land trust and everything, sending it over to you, and the title company will file all that, do all the documentation for you. Right now, to your question about due on sale, if the bank comes back and says anything, that's it. You gotta pay. You know, whatever it is, you gotta pay the lump sum. You gotta be ready for that, right? You have to know that they're the boss, and they say, hey, you gotta pay. You gotta find a means to do it. But it's still your property at that point, right? In this situation, due to the logistics of what this couple had, and the clearance of the title, and it was just it was a mess. And the Chapter 13 office were not very friendly, right? They weren't, oh, let me help you, here you go. They were very stringent, very rigid, right? And it took a while. So finessing all that was, that's the best word that I can use. You gotta know how to finesse sensitive situations in this particular. But I wanted to do it in a trust, right? Because at that point, I'm game. I'm good, you know? But it was just Chapter 13 attachment. It was, in order for me to just get going with them, I can still do it now.
So do you do a trust for every single one that you buy to protect yourself?
I would highly, highly, highly suggest
Okay.
that at all scenarios, if you can, do it.
Do that.
I mean, I
And
think that,
explain it to them, right? Explain, this is why, you know? It's all about educating.
Yeah,
think the
because
idea
it's
is
like
just-
I can help you, but if I get this thing called on me, then we both might be in trouble.
well, and it
Exactly.
goes back to disclosure. That's again another reason you want to. I mean, have a due on sale disclosure that the seller signs, so where they know
Okay.
that there's a small chance that it could happen. More than likely it won't, but just you want them to be informed that that is a possibility. But I think just on our end as investors, you want to prepare for all that. So I mean, I've seen investors that go and take subject to in their LLC, and they'll even call the bank and tell them they're doing that. The only thing I see there is that really when you call the bank like that and just tell them you're going to do it, just I mean, they've done it successfully without it getting called, but I'm just saying that typically when you call customer service, you're not going to be talking to someone that's a decision maker or that's even going to, have any impact on you calling them at all. So I don't really see that being the best way to do it. I think the trust makes the most sense because the trust provides privacy and based on the same just legally, a seller can transfer title to a trust, like just the homeowner, without triggering the due on sale clause.
Hmm.
So if you just have it set up in a trust, then the bank will many times look at it and just think they just did it for asset protection, like it's a living trust. or set up for, to avoid probate. So that's why that's a good way to conceal that. But with the trust, you can set it up, but you can be the beneficiary. Then you also have your company can be the beneficiary. You can have either yourself or a partner or someone else that's the trustee that shows up on public record that allows it to be concealed. And where the bank, they won't really know who's actually the owner because it
Then
conceals the beneficiary.
So at that point, once you have that trust, then that's when you can actually do what you mentioned earlier, leasing it back out to either another entity that you have, that all your rental income passes through, right? I mean, I've never done is a lease option the same as a rental? I don't think it is. I've never.
No, that's where they have
Like
the option to
those
buy. You rent it
were-
out and have the option to
Yeah,
buy.
you have the option to buy it.
Yeah, that's
They
an
really
option
kind
to
of
buy.
change those forms in Tennessee.
Yeah.
So here's a
So-
question.
And in Hawaii, we couldn't.
Yeah. So
Mm.
1031 exchange, because there's a lot of money in 1031 exchange. So like, I have a lot of clients that do 1031 exchange. Like last year, I did like 42 million in 1031 exchange. But one of the challenges is like you can't go into a lot of different types of situations with a 1031 exchange, like a syndication. So, could a 1031 exchange create a trust that bought subject to property? Have you had anybody that? Have you ever done a 1031 exchange this way?
Not that way. I have not. And I don't. I would have to look into it.
I mean, it could be a
I'd have to
fascinating.
think about that.
Could be a
I don't know.
fascinating area for 1031 exchange.
We do a lot with 1031 exchanges, and I've never. That's a fascinating.
Angle,
Yeah,
because that could be huge.
that'd be you really sort of benefiting out of two different.
I think it
ways
depends
there.
on how much equity is left in the property, because the 1031 is about, being able to hang on to your money and transfer it to a property that's usually, or you try to make it.
Well,
like
this would have
higher
been a
amount.
perfect example of a 1031 exchange.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a perfect example for 1031 exchange.
Yeah, but I mean, like what you're saying, that's typically what we're dealing with.
Yeah.
Like roll being able to roll it in to that next project.
Yeah.
So you're not having, you don't have any overage there. There's more covering that 1031.
Yeah, and
But
But a lot of them are looking for buy and hold.
correct. Yeah,
Right.
it's fascinating to think about the mechanics of.
we would have to talk to one of our attorneys about that. I'm not
Yeah.
sure exactly
Yeah,
how that would
I'm
work.
gonna-
I
I'm
understand
gonna
what you're
make that
saying,
phone call.
but I think it would probably make the difference is
Because that's
how much
huge.
equity is in the property. Because a lot of subject twos, you don't have as much equity. You're just taking over the payments, and you finance it with the mortgage in place, and there's just maybe a small amount of equity. So if there's just a small amount of equity, you wouldn't be able to do the 1031 because it wouldn't capture very much of that money.
And
And
then
you pay
it
tax on
defeats
most of it.
the purpose.
Yeah.
of
So it would
1031.
have to be something that has a lot of equity. But you might be able to do it. I don't know. We can find that out.
But another interesting question would be could you also somehow apply it to the opportunity fund
Well, exactly.
type of scenario? Opportunity, what's it called? Opportunity fund, opportunity
Opportunity zones.
zone
Oh.
funds.
Yeah, that's challenging right now because of the age of the opportunity zone situation.
Oh,
It was a lot better 2 years ago than it is today. We're still, it's the whole opportunity zone situation is more complicated now than it was two or 3 years ago.
It's the same for Nashville as well. It's
Yeah.
changed a lot with where we focused on opportunity zone in
2019, 2018.
2018, 2019 is when it really rolled out in our
Yeah.
market. But it's also, extremely good point.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any more questions on anything else?
You mentioned something about power of attorney for them on the subject too. Can you dig into that and unpack that a little bit more? Because I thought that was interesting, but I
I just get my lawyer to do a power of attorney.
Yeah, it's a
Okay.
limited power of attorney. It's just for that
It's for-
property. And so
Yeah.
yes, you can if you have to sign an escrow check or if the bank wants you to sign something.
It's-
So you're-
you can do
Whatever you need to do.
and
She's becoming the
everything.
power of attorney for them.
Okay, that's what I was asking. So you're becoming the power of attorney for the seller.
Yes.
Correct.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
So that way, if the seller, if you close and the seller like moves off or doesn't talk to you again, you've got the ability to sign stuff. Especially because you have the loan that's still in their name, you've got the ability to sign stuff with the power of attorney. That's why you want to do that.
Okay. Got it. And then you do that on every property, obviously.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then as far as the trust goes, do you have to get like one trust per property you take subject to?
Yes.
Okay. And then you take that trust, put it through your company. That's kind of a structure. Does that make sense?
Or
Yeah,
your
I mean,
company is
just
the
get a trust
trustee.
template and just change the name.
Your company's trustee, I would assume, would be the
It's-
trustee
yeah.
of the trust.
Yes. The trust is the umbrella, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then whatever entity your purchase agreement is,
Okay.
it's in there. That's the beneficiary.
But you have a trust for every property.
Yes.
Yeah, you want to separate it out. Like you don't
Totally.
have one trust for multiple properties. You want it to be like one trust per property. So that way the title is different. So that way, so if
Yeah.
someone someone did a title search or just try to look up your trust name and you had a bunch of
Right.
properties in there, it'd pull up all the properties you own. But if you just have a different trust name per property, then they would only be able to pull up that one.
So I know this is going to
Yeah.
be a really
One
weird
property.
question because it's complicated in Tennessee, but Tennessee has a series LLC. Is there a possibility that this system could work with a series LLC model? I'm just
You
Honestly,
could, or do you want to talk about it? I'm not going to give an answer.
A trust versus an LLC from a protection standpoint.
right.
Oh, you mean instead of using the trust?
Well, I mean, because Tennessee has a series LLC. I mean, we have, and I have a lot of investors that have done series LLCs.
I set one up like when I first started, but I've had a couple of title
it's-
attorneys tell
It's
me
still
that.
different.
Okay.
Yes.
Question, break down, the two of us don't know what y'all talking
Oh.
about.
Series LLC.
It's where you
We're
have
not
an
familiar.
you have you set up an LLC, but Tennessee and other states allow you to be able to set up like sub entities under that one LLC. But what I was going to say
Kind of
was
like a holding company.
Like
It's a holding LLC that has sub LLCs underneath of it.
Got it.
Oh,
Okay.
got it.
But the
Tennessee
issue-
is a series LLC state.
Okay.
But I've had attorneys tell me that that they don't want to like put a property or hold title in the series because apparently the series is like you file like a doing business as name,
Right.
which expires every 5 years in Tennessee. So if you put a title of a property in there and it expires, then who owns the property? Where does that go? You know what I mean? So that's
You have
why
to
I
have a
quit
good
using it.
CPA.
So I don't.
We use series LLCs for our brokerages.
Got
You
it.
do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
But
why.
you're not holding
when I heard
property in it.
Correct.
Hold
We're
on,
not,
so they-
we're not, we're not holding assets.
So
we're
that's
holding
the
risk.
difference. So I've just had attorneys to serve that. So.
That makes sense now. I didn't know it was
Just
called that.
serious-
But really, look, if you have just a good trust document from a good attorney, just use that one template and just change the name for each property. That's all you gotta do.
yeah.
Just pay for it once and then just use it, for each property and just change the name. It's really simple. And then your beneficiary can be whatever LLC is like your rental LLC. It really, here's the thing. So your trust, it really provides not only anonymity but also flexibility because it allows you to be able to buy the property. And you can maybe buy the property and have your flipping company as the beneficiary. Like, you think you may just want to flip it at first, but then you might decide, well, you know what, I'm just going to hold it as a rental. Well, then you can just go and change the beneficiary to your rental LLC, which without even going and filing any deeds or anything, you can go and change that without any expense, basically. So it allows more flexibility for investors that decide they want to maybe do a different strategy after they get into it. So that's why I think the trust is a really
I
way to
agree.
go on this.
I think it is a good model.
Question. So there will be separate text documents for all the what you call series LLCs. If you have 5 sub.
I'm not sure about that because I don't think
Or
so. I
there's
think
only
it's
one-
one. I
You're
think
gonna
it's one
fight
for
for
all
what
of
you
it.
call franchise taxes, or
No,
Just one.
it's one.
Because it's not
Just one.
because it's not a separate entity really. It's kind of
Yeah,
a
it's
sub
just a
entity.
little
So- Who's really good at series LLCs is he's our CPA, but he's also a legal attorney. Is Ed Schummel. He's really smart at that as a series LLC in Tennessee. I mean, he's worked with a lot of my investors, but he's a CPA, but he's also an attorney. But he's very good
where
at
is his
that.
office?
He's on Macaulay.
Macaulay?
Ed Schummel.
I think John.
Yeah,
I'm writing it
he's.
down.
I can see he's really good, but he understands. Like a lot of attorneys don't like to deal with it because they don't understand it, but he understands it and he knows how to work it to help you. But he's also a CPA, so he understands both aspects from being an attorney and a CPA from a tax ramification, which is a very difficult combination to find.
I was
Yes.
doing my taxes and my guy is a CPA,
Right.
not accountant. I asked him for the strategy. He said, talk to your tax strategist. I'm not your tax strategist.
Yes.
Right. That's why
I
we
said,
like Ed.
Now you need
I'm
a
paying you more money than.
we need a CPA now, we need a tax planner, and then we need a tax strategist, and then we need
Right.
a lawyer.
Right. That's why we like him. He's worked with a lot of my investors because he's very good at it. But he understands it and he's comfortable with it.
How do you spell his last name?
Schemel. Schemmel. Ed Schemmel.
All right, so before we finish, tell us a little bit about your coaching. Because I know that I went to one of your events about 3 months ago, I think. 2 or 3 months ago, and I was really impressed with what we did. So just tell us a little bit about that.
So it's called Yespreneur. I think we're all entrepreneurs in here, or entrepreneurs at heart, or longing to be entrepreneurs. I don't know. I'm an entrepreneur at heart. So Yespreneur is something. It helps entrepreneurs to really. I empower them and get them to embody, one, their leadership, two, I use a neuroscience framework to help them really look. They don't know they're doing it, but what we do is really going and breaking through their own walls as we do all the different exercises. And you were a contestant.
I was.
And it works, right? And so empowering business owners, entrepreneurs, women. I'm Hispanic, so Latina women too. You know, it's my passion, and kids, and my vision for that is to really grow financial literacy. So it's more of like a school of entrepreneurship. You know, real estate investing, stock market, entrepreneurship, multifamily, but really working with the actual owner of the companies, right? Or even teams, right? Finding the limiting or what's limiting each individual on the team, why they are not closing deals, or what's going on with them, right? There's different exercises that we do that allows me to know where they're at mentally, right? So the frameworks really help with pretty much, how do you say it in English? Like, come on, like kind of slap them, but not really
Right.
slap them, just very nicely. You know, utilizing the neuroscience framework that I use. So it's Yespreneur. So it's a 12-week program, and we go through. The first phase is really getting clarity on where they're at for me and them. So we become very quaint, right? The workshops are really to work on your business. So it's a 2-day workshop, but then after that, if the person wants one-on-one coaching, I go through 12 weeks and we work on clarity of where they're at in their business, where they're going, what's their vision, you know, what it is that they want to create in 2023, right? Up to from 5 years from now. And really focusing on let's talk about money, right? Abundance, right? Well, wealthiness. Some people have bad relationship with it. Well, they don't know why. So we dig into that one-on-one. and also it's all connected to how big our business is and how small our business is. So I love it. So you guys want to come?
Yeah.
So how do
I'm
they
in.
how do they get a hold of you? What is your website, or how do they get a hold of you?
You can.
You can do a retreat at our farm.
Yeah, I would love that. Yeah. You can Facebook, Yesenia Vasquez Rosa, Instagram, all those social media stuff. Yesenia at yespreneur.com. And what else?
That's it.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Any other final thoughts or questions before we finish?
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
We're good.
Thank you.
Go
Thanks.
get your first subject too. Call me if you need help.